I have the privilege of introducing our next speaker, Melanie who I met, maybe 2 years ago now, when I was going through the leadership program, and I could stand up here and take her entire time gushing about what an amazing person she is. She has taught so many lessons about leadership to so many people in the company, both through her role, but more as an example and as a mentor to people. I'm so excited for you all to see her presentation. It's going to be excellent. And if you have a chance afterwards, definitely connect with Melanie because she's an amazing person and a huge asset to HCA Healthcare. So with that, Melanie.
I was driving home from work in 2009, and that was a time in my life when I lived in Beijing, China. And I was at a really busy intersection. I was in the left-hand turning lane, and I knew it was going to take a while for me to get through this intersection. So while I was waiting, I kind of glanced over to my right. There's like 3 lanes of traffic, and then there's a sidewalk. And coming this way down the sidewalk was a guy on a moped, and he was like a bigger guy, kind of burly, maybe in his 40s or 50s. And then coming from the opposite direction was a high school student. And I could tell he was in high school because he had on the uniform. It was like a sky blue tracksuit. He had a backpack and a pair of glasses on. And the two of them are approaching each other, and I don't know exactly how it happened, but somehow they collided. And the guy on his moped sort of loses his balance, and the moped falls over. He goes down, and when he comes back up, his nose is bleeding, and he is mad. And he runs over to the high school student, and he starts yelling at the high school kid. And I couldn't exactly hear everything that they were saying, but I could tell that the high school kid wasn't exactly yelling back, but he also wasn't apologizing. And there were like a few more exchanges between the two of them, and I realized, wow, this is really escalating. And about the time I thought that, that's when moped guy kind of leans back and he punches high school kid in the face. And the high school kid takes a couple of steps back, and now his nose is bleeding. And that's when I thought, wow, this is really heating up. Moped guy takes another punch, and now high school kid goes down on the sidewalk. He's laying down on the sidewalk, and I was like, oh my God, somebody needs to break up this fight. Just when I thought that, moped guy actually gets on top of the high school student, and he's straddling him from the top, and he's like pummeling this poor kid, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to break up this fight now. So I look to my right, and there's no traffic in these 3 lanes, so I pull my station wagon around so that I'm like right here, and the fight's going on right here on the sidewalk, and I roll my window down, and I realize that I have no idea what I'm about to say. Like I know I need to break up a fight. I need to do this in Mandarin. I figure I have 6 to 8 words maybe for a maximum impact. So I said, all right, I'm going to offer to call like the Chinese equivalent of 911. So I roll down the window, grab my mobile phone as like a visual aid, and I yell out the window, 你们要不要我大耳幺零? Which is, do you guys want me to call 210? And the 2 guys fighting on the sidewalk just like stopped what they were doing, and they looked up at me with this look on their face of just utter confusion. Like they had no idea what was going on. And as they're sitting there looking at me like they're all bloodied and dazed and confused, I realized I am really, really uncomfortable right now. And the look of confusion on their faces was probably because 210 is in fact not the number. That number is 120. 210 is nothing. And so the 2 guys down here are looking up at me like really not understanding what I'm offering or who I am even. They're just pretty convinced, I'm sure, that I'm crazy. And I think they also determined that I was now more of a threat to them than they ever were to each other. So oddly enough, they're now a united front against a new common enemy, which is me. And they just want me to go away. But at least it did have the desired effect. So I kind of broke the momentum of the fight. And they stopped, they sort of looked at each other, they looked at me. They got up and they're like brushing themselves off and kind of wiping the blood away, and they're telling me, it's okay, it's all right. Don't dial whatever that 3-digit extension is. And I think once they had a chance to take that breath, they realized the fight's over. And high school kid, he goes over and he gets his backpack and he puts it on one shoulder. He realizes that he no longer has his glasses, and so moped guy is kind of helping him find that they had landed in a bush. So he hands high school kid his glasses, who puts his glasses back on. And then high school kid kind of continues on his way back home on his commute. And moped guy gets back on his bike and he drives on his way home. And I pulled back into the left-hand turning lane, and we all lived to fight another day. But from that one experience in China, I learned 5 really important things. First, I learned the number for emergency services in China. Secondly, I learned that I have the power, and in fact, we all have the power to change momentum. Like sometimes there's a series of events that are in motion, and it looks like things are headed down a particular path, and yet with one simple gesture or one simple act, we all have the power to totally divert that momentum and move things in a different direction. Another thing I learned is how powerful emotions are and how quickly they can change. Like just in those few moments on the sidewalk there, those guys went from complete calm to surprise, to hurt, to anger, to rage, then to violence, then to complete surprise, and then before too much time was over, back to complete calm, and they're back on their way on their commute. So I just realized how powerful our emotions are and how quickly they can change. But I think the 5th thing, and the most important thing that I learned in that moment, it goes back to that moment when I'm hanging out of my car window and the guys are looking at me like I'm crazy, and I realized how uncomfortable I was. In that moment, I also learned something about myself. And this is something that I think I always knew, but if there was ever any doubt, it was now abundantly clear that I have a bias for action. And a lot of times I will just jump in and start acting without even putting together a real plan first. That's something I think I always knew, and now I really knew it. So what I learned from that moment was something about myself. I gained some self-awareness. And I would not have gotten that if I hadn't gotten out of my comfort zone. That topic is what I'd like to explore with you a little bit today, that relationship between getting out of your comfort zone and self-awareness. I think we've all probably heard things about our comfort zone. You've probably heard the same things that I've heard, which are true, that when you get out of your comfort zone, that's when you really learn. And that's where personal growth happens. Those things are true, but note that I'm saying something a little bit different. I'm saying that there's something specific that is waiting for you at the edge of your comfort zone, and that is self-awareness. So what is self-awareness? My working definition of it is that self-awareness is a combination of a few things. First of all, you're aware of what your innate and learned strengths are. Also, you're aware of what your innate and learned weaknesses are. And I won't dive into it, but I believe that learned weakness is also a thing. Just because something doesn't kill you doesn't mean it makes you stronger, but that's a different TED Talk maybe next year. I also believe that if you are self-aware, you know what your values are. So if I gave you a list of 100 really wonderful things, would you be able to pick from that list, what are the 3 that you care about above all else? What are your 3? When you know that sort of thing about yourself and your values, that means you're self-aware. And then finally, if you're self-aware, you know how all of that impacts you and your behavior, especially in moments of stress. So let's say you're a person who values harmony, and you're in a meeting where maybe a heated debate starts, and maybe it even starts to get a little bit personal. So as a person who values harmony, you might start to have a stress reaction there. And if you're self-aware, you catch yourself in that moment, and you recognize, wow, one of my core values is not being honored here, I am feeling stressed. But you can stop yourself before you start to exhibit your stress behaviors. And that's the value of being self-aware. And also, if you're self-aware, you're able to recognize, I'm having this reaction, but that doesn't mean everybody in the room is having the same reaction. There could be some people in this room who are perfectly okay with this conversation. There might even be people who are getting a positive energy out of it. And when you can recognize that about yourself, that means that you're in touch with yourself, and you're also able to get in touch with the people in the room with you. And you can show up as the best version of yourself, especially in moments when it matters the most. So I think that self-awareness has a special value for us as leaders. I could say self-aware leaders are better leaders. And I think you would probably all agree with me. That just seems intuitively right. But Cornell University's School of Labor and Industrial Relations released some research recently. And they said, yeah, they're better leaders, but let us tell you what they're doing differently. In fact, they identified 3 specific things that self-aware leaders are doing differently. They said self-aware leaders, first of all, they're less likely to offend others. Second of all, they're more open to feedback. And third of all, when they hire to complement their skill set, rather than duplicate their skill set. So let's revisit the connections here for a second. So what I'm saying is the best leaders are self-aware. And I'm saying that the best self-awareness comes from getting outside of your comfort zone. So here's my question to you. Why do we not spend more time here, outside our comfort zone? There's a researcher at Brandeis University. His name is Dr. Andy Molinsky. And Molinsky has several articles in the Harvard Business Review specifically about comfort zone and what it means to get out of it. I think that he has a really great quote that sums up why we don't spend more time outside of our comfort zone. Molinsky says this. He says, nobody likes to get outside of their comfort zone, but it is where the magic happens. Also, it's terrifying. And I think a lot of us could identify with that terrifying part. So then maybe the question becomes, so how do we get over the terrifying part of getting out of our comfort zone and just do it more? I think there's this common misperception. If I said to you, I want you to get out of your comfort zone, some of you might think, oh great, now I have to go like jump out of a plane, or I have to go climb Kilimanjaro, or I have to go move to France for a year. But I would argue that it doesn't actually take that much to get out of your comfort zone. In fact, I would say that all of us have opportunities all day long, every day, to get out of our comfort zone, but we miss them. We miss those opportunities because just when it starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable, we step back into comfort. And we lose that opportunity to learn something about ourselves, to gain some self-awareness. But again, I think that it's much easier than we think to get out of our comfort zone. And to demonstrate that, I'd actually like to ask for help from a couple of you out in the audience. I want to disclose up front, there's a little bit of a speaking role involved here and a little bit of a non-speaking role. I'd like to get a couple of people who preferably don't know each other to volunteer to come up on the stage. I'm not going to hurt you with this. Can I get any volunteers to come up? Oh, thank you. Thank you. We've got one volunteer. Give her a round of applause. Yes, thank you. What is your name, sir?
I'm Greg Green. I'd like to speak to you.
Turns out we're hiring speakers today. Come on up this way, please, Greg. Are you the head of this theater, Greg?
Yes.
Oh, Blackbird Theater? We know each other. Thank you for volunteering.
Absolutely.
All right. So this may be a hard call. Is there anybody who doesn't know Greg? You're very popular. Is that the one
The
person?
pretty lady with the blonde hair.
Oh no, you're being voluntold.
I don't know.
No. Okay, somebody who knows Greg, but maybe not all that well. Oh,
Jennifer's going to get up.
All right. Jennifer is from Capital Division?
Yes.
How lovely. Hi, Jennifer. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Do you really not know Greg? All put together.
Oh, it's Jen Stanley. Oh, I had
Thank you for volunteering. All right, so here's what I need you guys to do first, please. I want you to imagine that you've just met at a cocktail party, and I want you to just exchange what you would say as you first meet each other. Sort of stand facing each other, face to face, and you have about 10 seconds.
Oh my gosh, your hair is gorgeous. So, do you have triplets? I have triplets.
All right, thank you. Now we know stay back where you were, please. So, of course, I'm interested in what they said. I have no idea what's going on with the triplets, no clue. But what I'm really more interested in is how much distance was between their toes. There's a researcher at Maastricht University, his name is Geert Hofstede. He did a lot of research on cultural norms and what we consider normal in our culture as compared to other parts of the world. So I'm going to measure the distance here between your feet, and I'm discovering that you all are standing approximately 43 centimeters apart, which is about what you would expect for two people from North America, give or take a few centimeters. How did it feel? How did it feel to be in that distance?
It's comfortable, yeah.
Comfortable and good. All right, well, I'm going to space you guys a little further apart. There is another culture in the world where people stand very far apart. In fact, about the furthest that you would ever expect two people to stand when they're meeting each other at a cocktail party is about right here at 110 centimeters. So could I get you, Greg, could you back up for me? Yeah. All right. So we've got about that distance. Imagine you're meeting at a cocktail party now, and you're standing at this distance. How does it feel?
Hey, what's going on?
It became a tug of war. It was a game suddenly. Yeah. How does it feel though in terms of like interacting with
It's
each other?
not, I was like, the hugging is not, it's just not going to happen.
Did you ever have to feel like the hug was not an option? You're like, we're screwing it.
But you have to yell.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to yell.
Yeah.
And it makes you uncomfortable because you have to yell. Does that tell you anything about yourself, Jennifer? All right, well, I'm going to change the scenario a little bit. I'm going to move you guys again. I'm going to move you to the position where two people would stand, the closest that two people will just about ever stand in the culture is about 30 centimeters. So I'm going to put this down and let you guys align yourselves, please.
May I ask what culture this is?
Thank you. Yeah, that's coming up. Thank you. Great question.
Eskimos where they have to huddle for water.
Eskimos is a good guess. So my first question to you is, how comfortable do you feel if you're meeting at a cocktail party and you're standing this close?
There's still a little distance between us, but I can work with it.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on?
And here's the thing. Under normal circumstances, when you find yourself like this, what you would do, Jennifer, is you would take a step back. That's just what we do. But I'm going to challenge you guys to stay in this for just a minute, if you could, please.
Sure.
And while you're standing here, I want you to ask yourself two questions. Why does this make me uncomfortable? And does that tell me anything about myself? So just be thinking on that for a second. And while they're thinking, I'm going to ask you all the question that Greg asked. What culture is it where people would stand this close together? It's a subculture within a culture. Sorry? China, good guess. Not China. A little further west from China.
India?
India, good guess. A little further west. No penalty for guessing, by the way. France, good guess, further east. Somewhere between France and India.
Romania.
Romania, a little further south. Good guess. Saudi Arabia, who said that? Yes, yes, in fact, it is the Middle East. It is Arabic culture. But within Arabic culture, it's a subculture of two men. So this is approximately where you would expect two Arabic men to stand if they were meeting each other for the first time. So good job. Let's go back over to our two here, Jennifer and Greg, and tell me, you can step back now. I want to thank you for staying in the discomfort, because I know that's not easy. Thank you. You're a terrible volunteer, Greg. I'm not ready. Okay, so tell me, as you were standing there and thinking about why does it make me uncomfortable, were you able to put your finger on anything?
I mean, it's just maximum eye contact.
Okay.
If you're not comfortable with that, that's tough.
Okay, so Greg says maximum eye contact, and you're acknowledging not everybody likes that. Do you like eye contact, Lachlan?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like to make contact with people, but you get that close, and there is definitely that lack of, you're much more vulnerable to the other person, and that can make people uncomfortable because of how I might feel about myself. I'm very confident, maybe it's not a big deal. If I don't know, what is this person going to think of me? I mean, in our breath, I mean, like,
Sure.
I mean, you talked about the two Arabic men. I mean, that's the idea. They're sharing breath is my understanding, and that's a way of respecting each other and being close friends with each other. Just sharing that breath. Most of us don't want to share breath.
No, most of us don't want to share breath. That's true. And it seems like there's some self-awareness in here for you around vulnerability, how you express your vulnerability, but also something about how it's important to you that that other person has a choice in engaging in that or not. And in this particular scenario, Jennifer didn't have a whole lot of choice because she was just physically so close. What an amazing thing to know about yourself. What about Jennifer? Were you able to put your finger on what made you uncomfortable?
It just felt very intimate, and I don't know him well enough to go there.
You don't want.
Does it tell you anything about yourself?
I guess obviously just some boundaries that I would put up about like different levels of how close, the closer I am to you, maybe the better. But also just like standing face to face, very,
Yeah.
it's almost aggressive.
are. We're getting one thing. Sorry to wrap this up. Jennifer, no, I so appreciate both of you for being willing to do this on the stage in front of all these people. I really appreciate that. You're visiting from Capitol Division. We don't do this to everyone.
We try.
But I can't let go of the self-awareness that Jennifer got out of that moment, which is around kind of, I have circles of intimacy, and I don't let just anybody into all of those circles. What an amazing thing for you to know about yourself, and for the people around you to know as well. I think that must be a real privilege to get far into those circles of intimacy. So, thank you both. Give them a round of applause. The point of that exercise is, did you notice that the difference between comfort zone and lack of comfort for them was 30 centimeters? That ability to get out of your comfort zone is just right there all the time, all day, every day. But we miss it because as soon as we start to get there, we back into our comfort zone. So this is my challenge to you. The next time that you feel yourself getting uncomfortable, maybe the next time there's a heated debate that starts in a meeting, or the next time somebody stands a little closer to you than you're comfortable with, or the next time that you've made a decision and you've put it out there and suddenly somebody's attacking it, very much in public. Rather than stepping back into your comfort zone, I challenge you to stay in the discomfort long enough to ask yourself 2 questions. Why does this make me uncomfortable? And what does that tell me about myself? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. We have time for class.